If you're seeing this, it's not random. Listen until the end, chosen one.
Chosen one, listen to me carefully. What I'm about to share is not for everyone. This message is urgent, sacred, and precise. If you are not walking the divine path of God, if your heart is closed to truth, then this message is not for you. But if you are a true follower of Christ, if your spirit has been feeling restless, pressured, or stirred lately, then understand this clearly. This message found you at the exact moment God intended. It did not reach you early. It did not reach you late. It reached you right on time. God is speaking, and his message is firm. He is saying, move. You can't stay where you are anymore. The place you're in, the season you're clinging to, the position that once felt safe, it has expired. And God is not asking, he is instructing. Chosen one, if you stay with me until the end of this message, you will understand why the pressure has increased, why comfort has disappeared, and why your spirit refuses to settle. This revelation will bring clarity, peace, and direction, if you're willing to receive it. Before we continue, chosen ones, give a like to this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap the bell icon, and share this message with other chosen ones who need this confirmation. And comment 777 in the comments to declare that you are aligned, obedient, and ready to move with God. Now breathe, let your mind settle, and let's begin. The divine pattern of movement. God never blesses stagnation. Chosen one, let me ground your spirit before we go any further. What you are experiencing is not random. It is not confusion. It is not weakness. It is alignment pressure. And to understand it, you must understand something fundamental about God's nature. God is always a God of movement. He has never blessed stagnation, and he has never preserved comfort for too long. From the very beginning, God revealed himself through motion. Creation itself was movement. Light moved into darkness. Order moved into chaos. Life moved into emptiness. And ever since, every chosen one who walked closely with God was called to move when the season demanded it. Abraham was told to leave what was familiar. Moses was forced out of the palace before he could lead a nation. Elijah was moved from brook to widow, from widow to mountain. Even Jesus himself moved constantly, never staying where people tried to settle him. So if you feel unsettled, chosen one, you are not broken. You are being patterned after those who came before you. God does not grow people by keeping them comfortable. He grows them by repositioning them. Comfort creates attachment. Movement creates trust. And God is far more interested in your trust than your convenience. This is why he allows things to stop working before he explains why. This is why peace disappears before direction becomes clear. This is why familiar places begin to feel heavy instead of safe. You see, stagnation is dangerous for the chosen. It dulls discernment. It slowly disconnects you from divine sensitivity. When you stay too long in a place God has already finished with, you begin to rely on memory instead of obedience. You start living off what God did instead of what God is doing, and God will never bless a version of you that refuses to move forward. Let me say this gently but firmly. God is not punishing you by making you uncomfortable. He is protecting what he placed inside you. The anointing on your life cannot survive indefinitely in an environment that no longer feeds it. What once nurtured you can eventually suffocate you. And because God loves you, he disrupts before damage occurs. This is where many people get it wrong. They think peace means staying. But peace is not always stillness. Sometimes peace comes after obedience. Sometimes peace only returns once you step out of what feels safe. The chosen ones understand this later, not earlier. In the moment, movement feels like loss. But in truth, it is preservation. God never allows his chosen to settle permanently, because settlement creates dependence on place instead of dependence on him. And God refuses to compete with anything for your trust. Not people, not positions, not routines, not familiarity. When something begins to replace him as your source of security, he removes its comfort so you remember where your strength truly comes from. Chosen one, notice how God does not argue with you when you resist. He simply removes the ease. He lets frustration rise. He allows boredom to creep in. He lets restlessness disturb your sleep. Not because he is cruel, but because he is precise. He knows that the chosen will move when staying becomes more painful than leaving. And understand this clearly. Movement does not always mean physical relocation. Sometimes it is spiritual repositioning. Sometimes it is emotional detachment. Sometimes it is the release of old identities, old expectations, or old versions of yourself. But whatever form it takes, movement is always required when God says a season is complete. This is why your spirit has been refusing to settle. This is why you can no longer pretend. This is why what once excited you now feels empty. You are not losing gratitude. You are gaining discernment. Your soul recognizes that God has already gone ahead of you, and remaining behind only creates tension. God never reveals the full picture before movement because faith cannot grow where certainty controls everything. He gives just enough light for the next step, not the entire staircase. That is intentional. That is divine. That is how trust is formed. And here is something you must accept as a chosen one. God will never beg you to move. He will warn. He will nudge. He will apply pressure. But the decision must come from obedience, not fear. He wants your yes, not your panic. So if you are asking why this feels uncomfortable, why clarity hasn't fully arrived, why peace seems delayed, it is because peace is waiting on the other side of obedience. God has already blessed the next place. He has already prepared what's ahead, but he will not pour new oil into an old position. Chosen one, God is not asking you to run blindly. He is asking you to trust deeply. Movement is not abandonment, it is alignment, and alignment always feels disruptive before it feels peaceful. Let your heart rest in this truth. If God is stirring you, he is also sustaining you. He never calls you forward without already being there. Why God is saying move now? The season has shifted. Chosen one. This is where many people misunderstand God. They assume that if God wanted them to move, he would have spoken louder, earlier, or more clearly. But God does not work on human urgency. He works on divine readiness. And what you are feeling right now is not sudden. It is the result of a season quietly shifting while you were still standing in the old one. There was a time when staying made sense. There was a time when God allowed you to remain where you are. That season had purpose. It trained you. It shaped you. It strengthened parts of you that were weak. But seasons do not last forever. And when a season ends, grace for staying begins to dry up. That drying up is not abandonment. It is instruction. God is saying, move now, because what you needed from this season, you have already received. The lessons are complete. The endurance has been built. The awareness has been activated. You are not the same person who entered this place, this role, this relationship, this mindset. And because you have changed, the environment must change too. Growth always creates tension with old surroundings. Let me say this clearly so your mind can relax. God did not wait until now because he was unsure about you. He waited because you were not ready before. Readiness is not about skill, it is about inner alignment. Earlier, movement would have broken you. Now, staying will. That's why the pressure feels different. Earlier, discomfort came and went. Now it lingers. Earlier, you could ignore it. Now it follows you. Earlier, prayer would calm it. Now prayer intensifies it. That is not confusion. That is confirmation. When prayer no longer soothes your resistance, it means God is no longer negotiating the decision. Chosen one, God always signals a season shift before he gives new direction. He removes the emotional reward from what you're doing. He drains the excitement. He disrupts the rhythm. He allows dissatisfaction to surface. Not because what you did was wrong, but because it is no longer where he is operating. You must understand something important. God moves ahead of his chosen. He does not stay behind waiting for them to feel comfortable. When he shifts, the anointing shifts with him. And when you remain where the anointing used to be, you begin to feel dry, tired, uninspired, even though you are doing the same things. That dryness is not failure. It is a signal that God has gone forward. This is why clarity feels delayed. God does not give full clarity in old seasons. He gives clarity while you are moving. Direction comes with motion. Stillness in an expired season only produces overthinking. That's why your mind has been busy lately. You're trying to solve spiritually what can only be resolved through obedience. Let me speak to the fear gently. You're not afraid of moving. You're afraid of moving without guarantees. And God rarely gives guarantees before obedience because guarantees create dependence on outcomes instead of dependence on Him. Faith, real faith, is built when you trust God's character without seeing the map. God is saying, move now because delay is beginning to cost you more than obedience. What once protected you is now limiting you. What once covered you is now constraining you. And God loves you too much to let you shrink just to stay comfortable. Notice how resistance increases right before breakthrough. That is not coincidence. That is spiritual timing. Every major transition feels unclear before it feels confirmed. God does this intentionally, so you learn to recognize His voice without external validation. Chosen ones are trained to move with inner certainty, not crowd approval. And hear this, chosen one. God is not rushing you, but He is warning you. There is a difference. Rushing creates panic. Warning creates awareness. God is letting you know that staying too long will begin to damage what He built in you. Delay can turn wisdom into disobedience if you ignore enough signals. You have already noticed the signs. Conversations feel repetitive. Tasks feel heavier. You feel ahead of people around you. Your questions have changed. Your prayers have matured. These are all indicators that you are spiritually outgrowing your current season. Growth without movement always produces frustration. God is saying move now because the next season requires a version of you that cannot be formed where you are. New authority demands new positioning. New assignments demand new preparation. And preparation often looks like separation before elevation. Let me calm your heart here. Moving does not mean everything will make sense immediately. It means God will meet you in motion. He always does. He never calls His chosen forward without sustaining them step by step. The fear you feel is not danger. It is unfamiliarity, and unfamiliarity fades once obedience begins. Chosen one, this moment is not about loss. It is about transition. You are not being removed. You are being reassigned. God is not closing doors to punish you. He is closing them so you stop standing in hallways that no longer lead anywhere. Rest your mind in this truth. When God says move, it is because staying would delay your destiny. And God is precise with timing. He speaks when the cost of staying becomes greater than the fear of leaving. You don't need to see the full picture, you just need to trust the one who does. The season has shifted, and your spirit already knows it. The hidden cost of staying. What you're losing by remaining. Chosen one, let me speak to you slowly here because this is where healing and honesty meet. Most people assume staying is neutral. They believe that if they don't move forward, at least they aren't going backward. But in the spiritual realm, there is no such thing as neutral ground. When God says a season is finished, staying does not preserve you. It quietly begins to drain you. The cost of staying is not always visible at first. It doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't announce itself. It creeps in gently, almost politely. You begin to feel tired in ways rest cannot fix. You start questioning things you never doubted before. Your passion dims, not because you've lost faith, but because faith was designed to grow through obedience, not stagnation. When you remain in a place God has already outgrown for you, something subtle happens. You start shrinking parts of yourself so you can fit. You explain away your discernment. You silence your convictions. You tell yourself you're being patient, when in truth you're being hesitant. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to remember what bold obedience once felt like. This is one of the greatest hidden costs, self-betrayal. Not intentional, not dramatic, but slow. You begin ignoring the inner voice God sharpened inside you. And when discernment is ignored long enough, it doesn't disappear. It turns into frustration. That frustration shows up as irritability, heaviness, and emotional fatigue. You feel worn out even when nothing around you has changed. Another cost is clarity. Clarity fades when you stay too long. Not because God stops speaking, but because your environment no longer echoes his voice. You're surrounded by reminders of who you used to be instead of who you're becoming. And that constant reflection backward makes forward vision blurry. Chosen one, staying also costs you time. Not clock time, but seasonal time. There are windows God opens that cannot be revisited in the same way. Delay does not cancel destiny, but it can complicate it. What could have been smooth becomes heavy. What could have been joyful becomes stressful. Obedience delayed often requires extra pruning later. There is also an emotional toll. Staying where God has removed his peace forces you to manufacture peace on your own. You try to reason yourself into calm. You distract yourself. You spiritualize your discomfort. But peace that comes from avoidance never lasts. It demands constant maintenance, and that maintenance drains your spirit. Let me be clear about something important. God removes peace before he removes people, places, or positions. Peace is his early warning system. When peace leaves, it is not punishment. It is protection. It is God saying, I can no longer keep you comfortable here without compromising what I'm building in you. The chosen often misunderstand this and assume something is wrong with them. They pray harder. They fast longer. They try to fix what God is trying to end, and in doing so, they unknowingly resist grace. Not because they lack faith, but because they are emotionally attached to familiarity. Staying also dulls spiritual sensitivity. When you're supposed to move but don't, discernment becomes noisy. Everything feels important. Everything feels urgent. You lose the ability to distinguish between what matters and what merely fills space. This is why overthinking increases in expired seasons. Your spirit knows it's time to go, but your mind keeps negotiating reasons to stay. There is another cost we don't talk about enough. The cost to your future self. The version of you God is preparing cannot fully emerge where you are. New authority cannot be practiced in old environments. New assignments cannot be trained under old expectations. So when you stay, you delay meeting the version of yourself that carries the next level of peace, confidence, and clarity. And listen to me closely here, chosen one. Staying too long can also make you resentful, not outwardly at first, but inwardly. You begin resenting people who are comfortable where you are not. You resent routines that once felt safe. You resent responsibilities that no longer align. That resentment is not sinful, but it is a signal. It is your soul saying, I am no longer where I belong. God never wants obedience to turn into bitterness. That's why he calls movement before resentment hardens. He intervenes while your heart is still soft. He disrupts while you can still hear him clearly. Another hidden cost is spiritual confidence. The longer you delay obedience, the harder it becomes to trust yourself. You start questioning your ability to hear God. You replay past decisions. You wonder if you're imagining things. But the truth is simple. Disobedience clouds confidence, not lack of calling. God does not withdraw your calling when you hesitate. He waits. But waiting too long makes the calling feel heavier instead of empowering. That weight you feel is not the calling itself. It's the tension between where you are and where you're supposed to be. Let me speak healing into your mind right now. None of this means you've failed. None of this means you've disappointed God. Chosen ones often linger longer than they should because they are loyal, patient, and hopeful. Those are strengths. But every strength must be surrendered when it begins to work against obedience. Staying costs you momentum, and momentum is spiritual fuel. When you move with God, energy returns, creativity returns, peace returns. But when you stay, everything feels like effort. even prayer feels heavy. Even worship feels forced. That is not because God has left you. It's because He's ahead of you. Chosen one, God is not asking you to abandon gratitude for what was. He's asking you to release attachment to what no longer is. You can honor a season without living in it. You can appreciate growth without staying rooted in old soil. The hidden cost of staying is that it slowly convinces you that discomfort is normal. It teaches you to tolerate what God intended you to transcend, and God will never allow His chosen to normalize limitation. So if your spirit feels tired, confused, or restless, don't shame yourself. Don't rush yourself either. Just recognize the truth gently. Staying has begun to cost you more than moving ever will. God is not taking something from you. He is calling you out before staying takes something from you that you cannot afford to lose. Signs God has already been pushing you forward. Chosen one, before your mind tries to argue with what your spirit already knows, let me slow this down and bring peace into your thoughts. God rarely moves His chosen abruptly. He prepares them quietly. Long before He speaks clearly, He begins adjusting your inner world. That's why this has felt gradual, confusing, and deeply personal. God has already been pushing you forward. You just didn't label it that way. One of the first signs is discomfort that refuses to leave. Not panic, not fear, but a steady inner tension. You wake up feeling like something is unfinished, even when your life looks stable. You go through your routine, but it feels hollow. That discomfort isn't anxiety, it's misalignment. Your spirit is no longer synced with your surroundings. Another sign is detachment. You didn't become cold. You didn't lose love. You simply stopped feeling emotionally anchored to people, places, or patterns that once defined you. Conversations feel repetitive. Interactions feel shallow. You still care, but you don't belong the same way anymore. God is gently loosening your grip so the separation doesn't shock you later. You may have also noticed a strange loneliness, even when you're not alone. This isn't isolation. This is transition solitude. God often pulls His chosen inward before moving them outward. He quiets the noise so you can hear Him more clearly. That's why you've been craving silence, reflection, and depth. Your soul is preparing to listen instead of react. Another clear sign is emotional fatigue without obvious cause. You're not doing more than before, yet everything feels heavier. Tasks drain you. Obligations weigh on you. This isn't burnout. This is God withdrawing grace from what He no longer wants you attached to. When grace lifts, effort increases. That's how God signals completion. You may also feel restless in prayer, not distant from God, just unable to pray the same prayers. Old words feel empty. Repeated requests feel wrong. Your prayers are becoming simpler, more honest, more surrendered. This shift isn't spiritual decline, it's maturity. God is training you to listen more than ask. Another sign is your discernment sharpening without your effort. You see through things faster. You sense intentions clearly. You feel when something is off without needing proof. This heightened awareness often appears right before movement because God equips you with clarity before He removes familiarity. He strengthens your inner compass so you don't rely on surroundings for direction. You've likely experienced sudden loss of excitement too. Things you once looked forward to now feel dull. You're not depressed. You're completed. Excitement fades when purpose is fulfilled. God doesn't keep stirring enthusiasm for what He's finished with. Let me touch something deeper here. You may feel misunderstood lately, not attacked, just unseen. People don't quite get you anymore. Your thoughts don't land the same. Your growth created distance without conflict. That's another sign. When alignment shifts, resonance changes. Not everyone can hear you once your frequency rises. God also pushes forward by changing your questions. Earlier you asked, "How do I survive?" Now you ask, "Why am I here?" That change is massive. Survival questions belong to old seasons. Purpose questions belong to new ones. When your questions mature, your environment must too. You may notice God removing distractions, not forcefully, but naturally. Certain habits lose appeal. Certain escapes stop working. You try to distract yourself, but your spirit resists. This isn't discipline. It's redirection. God is narrowing your focus so you don't carry excess into the next phase. Another powerful sign is repeated confirmation, not loud signs. Subtle echoes. Phrases you keep hearing. Messages that resonate too deeply to ignore. Scriptures that stand out. Conversations that mirror your inner thoughts. God repeats himself when movement is near, not because he doubts his message, but because he knows you're human. You might also feel emotionally exposed. Things surface that you thought you healed, not to hurt you, but to free you. God often clears unresolved weight before movement so you don't carry it forward. Healing becomes urgent when transition approaches. Here's something many chosen ones experience but rarely name: loss of tolerance. You can no longer tolerate misalignment. Small compromises bother you. Delayed decisions irritate you. This intolerance isn't pride, it's refinement. God is fine-tuning your sensitivity. Another sign is increased inner dialogue. You reflect more, you question more, you process deeper. This isn't overthinking. It's integration. God is helping you make sense of who you've become so you don't abandon yourself in the next season. You may also feel like you're standing between two worlds, not fully attached to the old, not yet settled in the new. This in-between space is uncomfortable, but sacred. It's where shedding happens. It's where identities dissolve. It's where obedience forms quietly. And let me bring peace here. If you feel tired of explaining yourself, that's another sign. God is reducing your need for validation. Movement requires confidence without applause. He's teaching you to trust his voice over reactions. Chosen one, none of these signs mean you're lost. They mean you're being led. God does not push violently, he nudges persistently. He applies pressure gently but consistently until you're ready to choose obedience willingly. The most important sign of all is this: you already know. Not logically, spiritually. There's a knowing you can't shake. A quiet certainty beneath the noise. That knowing is God's fingerprint. He placed it there intentionally. So rest your mind. You are not imagining this. You are not unstable. You are not ungrateful. You are responding to divine preparation. God has already been pushing you forward, not to rush you, but to ready you. And when you finally move, you'll realize something profound. You were never being pushed away. You were being pulled forward. Fear, resistance, and the mind of the chosen one. Chosen one. Now we arrive at the place where most people get stuck. Not because they lack faith, but because their mind is trying to protect them from uncertainty. Let me speak calmly and firmly here. Fear showing up right now does not mean you are going the wrong way. In fact, for the chosen, fear often appears only when you are close to obedience. Understand this first, so your heart can settle. The mind was designed to preserve safety, not destiny. The mind loves patterns. It trusts what it can predict. It clings to familiarity because familiarity feels controllable. But destiny, especially divine destiny, rarely feels controllable. And this is where resistance is born. Resistance is not rebellion, it is hesitation fueled by responsibility. Chosen ones resist more deeply than others because they feel more deeply. They think further. They consider consequences. You are not careless, so you don't move lightly. But the same depth that makes you wise can also slow you down if you let fear lead instead of discernment. Let me separate two things clearly. Fear and warning are not the same. Warning is calm. It's clear. It carries instruction. Fear is noisy. It loops. It exaggerates. Fear asks, what if everything goes wrong? Warning says, pay attention here. What you're experiencing right now is not a warning. It's fear responding to loss of control. Your mind keeps asking for guarantees, proof, timing, details. And God in his wisdom withholds some of that. not to frustrate you, but to free you. Because if he gave you all the details, you wouldn't need trust. And trust is the muscle he's strengthening in you right now. This is why resistance often sounds logical. It doesn't come as panic. It comes as reasoning. Now isn't the right time. Let me wait a little longer. What if I'm wrong? These thoughts feel wise, but repeated hesitation eventually becomes disobedience dressed as patience. God understands your questions, but he doesn't want them to replace obedience. Chosen one, fear often disguises itself as responsibility. You tell yourself you're being careful. But deep down, the fear isn't about failure. It's about identity loss. Moving means shedding a version of yourself that once kept you safe. And the mind grieves that loss before the heart celebrates the gain. Another layer of resistance is emotional attachment. You're not attached to the place or situation itself. You're attached to what it represented when God met you there. Memories, growth, survival. God honors that. But he doesn't allow memory to become an anchor. Gratitude should never turn into obligation. Let me say something bold but healing. Chosen ones often confuse loyalty with obedience. You stay because you don't want to disappoint people, places, or even past versions of yourself. But God never called you to be loyal to environments. He called you to be loyal to him. Fear also shows up when your identity has outgrown its container. You've been becoming someone new internally, but externally you're still operating under old expectations. That mismatch creates anxiety. Your mind feels stretched because it's trying to compress something that no longer fits. And here's something very important. Resistance increases when you are about to step into greater authority. Authority demands self-trust. And self-trust can feel terrifying when you've spent years relying on structure, validation, or external guidance. God is shifting you from dependency to stewardship. The mind hates transitions because transitions feel like instability. But spiritually, transitions are sacred spaces. They are where God teaches you to hear him without noise, to move without applause, to stand without reinforcement. This is why fear gets loud, because silence is increasing. You may notice your mind replaying worst-case scenarios. That's not prophecy. That's fear trying to regain control. The chosen mind is powerful. When misdirected, it imagines threats. When surrendered, it discerns truth. Right now, God is asking you to hand the steering wheel back to him. Another form of resistance is self-doubt. You question your ability to hear God. You replay past mistakes. You wonder if you misunderstood him. But listen carefully. God does not lead through confusion. If the message has been consistent, if the pressure has been steady, if the signs have repeated, that is not imagination. That is instruction. Chosen one, fear is not proof that you are weak. It is proof that you care. But fear should never be your counselor. It can inform you, but it cannot lead you. God did not give fear authority. He gave it boundaries. Resistance also grows when you feel alone in the decision. Others may not understand. They may question you. They may be comfortable where you are not. That isolation intensifies fear. But obedience is rarely a group decision. God often speaks to the chosen privately because the assignment is personal. Let me speak therapy into your soul here. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not failing God by hesitating. But you will exhaust yourself if you keep fighting what he is gently insisting on. Peace does not come from figuring everything out. Peace comes from alignment. The mind wants safety before movement. God offers safety through movement. That's the tension you're feeling. And once you move, the fear will quiet. Not because circumstances are perfect, but because your spirit will finally be where it belongs. Chosen one, God is not disappointed by your fear. He is patient with it, but he will not allow fear to lead your life. He is inviting you to trust him beyond logic, beyond comfort, beyond familiarity. So breathe here, slow your thoughts. You don't need to silence fear. You just need to stop obeying it. Resistance does not mean no. It means your mind is catching up to what your spirit already accepted. And hear this deeply. Every time you moved with God in the past, fear showed up first. And yet you survived, grew, and became stronger. This moment is no different. The fear you feel is not the end. It is the doorway. God is not asking you to be fearless. He is asking you to be faithful. And faith does not wait for fear to leave. Faith moves while fear watches. You are not losing control. You are transferring it to the one who sees further than you ever could. What happens after you move? The reward of obedience. Chosen one, let me quiet your spirit here, because this is where hope replaces tension. This is where obedience stops feeling like loss and starts revealing itself as protection. What happens after you move is not chaos. It is not punishment. It is not regret. What happens after you move is alignment, and alignment always brings relief, even before it brings answers. The first thing that happens after obedience is peace. Not the kind of peace that depends on circumstances, but the kind that settles your nervous system. Your thoughts slow down. The internal arguing stops. The mental noise fades. You may still have questions, but they no longer control you. That's how you know you've moved with God. Peace returns not because everything is clear, but because you are finally standing where you belong. Another thing that happens is clarity begins to arrive in pieces. God doesn't overwhelm you with information. He releases insight as you're ready to carry it. One step reveals the next. One decision unlocks another door. You'll notice that ideas flow more easily. Direction feels natural instead of forced. You stop overthinking because alignment removes the need to convince yourself. Energy also returns. Not frantic energy, but steady strength. You wake up less drained. Your motivation shifts from pressure to purpose. Tasks feel lighter, even if they're challenging. This is because obedience removes internal resistance. You're no longer dragging your spirit in a direction it doesn't want to go. Chosen one, obedience restores confidence. When you move with God, you begin trusting yourself again. Not in arrogance, but in discernment. You realize that you can hear Him, that you weren't imagining the signs, that the pressure had meaning. This self-trust is critical because God is preparing you for greater responsibility, not dependence. Another reward is divine confirmation. Once you move, God confirms quietly. Through peace, through timing, through unexpected support, through doors opening without struggle. These confirmations don't come to impress others. They come to settle you. God reassures His chosen privately so they don't rely on applause. You'll also notice emotional freedom. Guilt lifts. Obligation loosens. You stop feeling responsible for maintaining what God already released you from. This freedom doesn't make you careless. It makes you honest. You begin living lighter because you're no longer carrying weight that wasn't assigned to you. Let me address something important. Obedience does not mean everything becomes easy. Challenges still exist. But the difference is this. Challenges no longer confuse you. You face them with clarity instead of doubt. You no longer wonder if you're in the wrong place every time resistance appears. That stability is a powerful reward. After obedience, God often introduces new relationships. Not louder ones, deeper ones. People who see you clearly. Conversations that feed you. Connections that align with who you've become, not who you were. These relationships don't rush you. They respect your growth. They meet you where you are. Another reward is restored creativity. When you move with God, inspiration flows again. Ideas feel fresh. Vision expands. You start thinking beyond survival. You imagine what's possible. This isn't ambition, it's permission. God gives creativity when He knows you're aligned enough to steward it. You'll also notice something subtle but powerful. Your prayers change again. They become confident, grounded, less desperate. You stop asking God to fix what you already left. You begin asking Him to guide what you're building. That shift signals spiritual maturity. Obedience also sharpens authority. You speak differently. You decide differently. You tolerate less misalignment. Not out of pride, but out of clarity. You no longer second-guess your boundaries. Authority settles naturally when alignment is restored. Chosen one, God often rewards obedience with timing miracles. Things line up without force. Opportunities appear when you least expect them. Delays resolve themselves. This isn't luck. It's alignment making room for grace to flow again. Let me calm a lingering fear. Moving does not erase your past. It redeems it. Everything you went through becomes preparation. Nothing is wasted. God never moves his chosen without using what they've survived as fuel for what's next. Another reward is emotional maturity. You stop reacting. You start responding. You don't feel the need to explain yourself to everyone. You become comfortable with being misunderstood because you're deeply understood by God. That inner security is priceless. Obedience also restores joy, not loud joy, quiet joy. The kind that sits with you even on difficult days. You smile more naturally. You laugh without effort. Joy returns when resistance ends. You may also notice your discernment becoming sharper but calmer. You don't feel paranoid. You feel clear. You know when to engage and when to walk away. Discernment becomes peaceful once it's no longer fighting your environment. Chosen one of the greatest rewards of obedience is rest. Not inactivity, but rest of the soul. You stop striving to prove your calling. You stop explaining your journey. You trust that God is handling what you cannot see. And hear this deeply. God does not reward obedience to test you. He rewards it to sustain you. He knows what it costs to move. He honors courage quietly. What happens after you move is not perfection. It is right placement. And right placement changes everything. You will still grow, you will still stretch, but you will do it from a place of alignment instead of resistance. That alone makes all the difference. Chosen one, obedience doesn't remove challenges. It removes confusion. And a life without confusion feels lighter, clearer, and more peaceful than you ever imagined. God never asks you to move without already preparing what's ahead. He goes before you. Always. And once you move, you'll realize the truth. The hardest part was never the next season. It was leaving the old one. But you did. And because you did, peace found you again. Conclusion. This is your confirmation, chosen one. Take a deep breath right now. Let your shoulders relax. Let your mind slow down. If you felt something settle inside you while listening to this message, understand this clearly. This was not coincidence. This was confirmation. God knew exactly when to reach you, and he chose this moment because your spirit was finally ready to hear what your mind has been resisting. You are not late. You have not missed anything. God is not frustrated with you. He is patient, precise, and deeply aware of your heart. The pressure you felt was never meant to crush you. It was meant to wake you up. And now you understand why staying where you are has felt heavier than moving forward. Let this truth bring you peace. Obedience is safer than comfort, always. God does not ask his chosen to move to confuse them. He moves them to protect them, to grow them, and to align them with what he has already prepared. You are not being pushed out. You are being called up. You don't need to rush, but you cannot ignore this anymore. Move thoughtfully. Move prayerfully. Move with trust. God will meet you step by step, just as he always has. You have never walked alone, and you are not starting now. If this message resonated with you, chosen one, give a like to this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap the bell icon, and share this message with other chosen ones who need this confirmation. And comment 777 in the comments to declare that you are aligned, obedient, and ready to move with God. Remember this as you go. When God says move, it's because peace is waiting ahead of you, and this time, you are ready. Go in faith. Go in peace.